The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
Hey there. I stopped you going a little fast. You didn't realize this is 35?
Oh, it's 35?
It is, yeah. So you're going
41?
Yeah. Were you wearing your seatbelt when I stopped you?
No.
No?
Just for future reference, I mean, I'm obviously an honest person, right? I told you I wasn't wearing my seatbelt. When people lie to you about that, say I'm lying to you about that, right? Just for my own knowledge. Honestly, go back and look at that.
Chilling new video of killer Bryan Kohberger being pulled over just months before he brutally murdered those Idaho students. And he said, she said, defendant Billy Delgado taking the stand and victim Erica Torres testifying as well. So who will the jury believe in the shot 5 times assault trial? Also this hour, dentist James Craig accused of poisoning his wife Angela. His fate now in the hands of the jury. We're on a verdict watch in Colorado. Plus, Diddy's making another attempt at bail. My one-on-one interview with Diddy's defense attorney, Marc Agnifilo. It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Wednesday morning to you and welcome to Opening Statements. I'm Julie Grant. This is the show I like to call Coffee and Court. It's morning time. We get you all warmed up and ready to go for the big day ahead on Court TV Live. It's already a big day. We got a big show. Let's get started. Grab that cup of coffee. It's time for my opening statement. Did you hear the sirens? Oh, I heard them. Fire trucks responding to the courthouse where defendant Billy Delgado is being tried. That's right, pants on fire, Billy Delgado. You know, I suppose when a person is caught on camera committing what certainly looks like an attempted homicide, they've got to tell the jury something. Seems to me this defendant concocted that story about his child. I might have believed it if he had shot at the man he claimed to be so upset with. That I would understand. Not saying it would be right. No, it's against the law and wrong. But it would make some sense because he would be hurting the person who he believes hurt his child. But instead, it looks more like this defendant is trying to get a free pass on an aggravated assault because his victim is related to the person who allegedly harmed their daughter. Allegedly being the key word here, because we haven't seen any evidence of any uncle harming the child. Only the word of the man who's on trial. My take on the case evidence? Stick a fork in him, he's done. He used foolish judgment. His actions speak louder than his words, and his words just aren't believable. To put it simply, in addition to being a really bad shot, Mr. Delgado is also a really bad liar. That's my opening statement. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket. We are expected to be in a verdict watch for 3 major trials today. So in Washington, the jury deliberations are going to resume at noon in the attempted honor killing trial. Then in Colorado, it's day 2 of deliberations in the poison shake murder trial for disgraced dentist James Craig. And then in Texas, we've got the jury deliberations expected to begin today after the closing arguments are done in the shot 5 times assault trial for Billy Delgado. Right now, though, we're turning to our top story this morning as we've got some newly released body camera video of killer Bryan Kohberger just months before he murdered Madison Mogen, Kaylee Gonsalves, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. His footage is from Moscow police from August of 2022. The killer got pulled over for going over the speed limit and was cited for not wearing his seatbelt. Now, prosecutors plan to use this video to link him to his white Hyundai Elantra, which was key evidence in the case. Take a look.
stopped you going a little fast. You didn't realize this is 35?
Oh, it's 35?
It is, yeah. So you're going
about 41?
Yeah, 43 is what the radar said.
Sure.
Oh, yeah. Do you have your license, the registration, insurance? Were you wearing your seatbelt when I stopped you? No. That's no good.
Just being honest with you.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
You guys are, there's absolutely no point in not being honest.
Yeah.
You have a radar.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Do you have a vehicle registration slip or something like that? Okay.
Would I give you my insurance?
Yeah, this is your insurance. That's good. Thing is, I'm on a overtime shift right now. One of the conditions is we have to enforce seatbelt laws, and so to write you a citation for that, it's $10 in Idaho. Not a huge deal, but yeah. Be right back. Can I get a phone number from you?
Yeah, why?
We need to put it on the citation as it goes to the court.
Just for future reference, I mean, I'm obviously an honest person, right? I told you I wasn't wearing my safety belt. When people lie to you about that, say I'm lying to you about that, right? Just for my own knowledge. You honestly go back and look at that, or you just
With a seatbelt like this, I didn't check as I was coming up, so that's why I asked you.
Do you usually?
I should. I noticed you weren't wearing it, and I'm on this emphasis, and like I said, I'm getting paid by ICD, and they want us to enforce the seatbelt laws, so I was being more aware of that. That's where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Have a good night.
So what do you think of this newly released video footage? Let's bring in our legal eagles. So happy to have on the show this morning attorneys Don Malarczyk and Franz Borghardt. Good morning to you both. Franz, would you start us off, please? Your thoughts on Mr. Kohberger in this traffic stop?
Well, if you think about it, this is the most we've gotten from him. I mean, we've never really heard him speak in court before. We've never really seen much emotion. Even in the sentencing, he at most he smirked, Julie. So, you know, that's number one. Number two is, isn't it interesting the questions he's asking about a seatbelt violation, about, you know, his interaction? It's just kind of creepy. So, you know, I think there'll be other information that comes out over the course of the next few weeks, months. This is probably just tip of the iceberg, but I mean, it just gives us a little snapshot into who he is. So, you know.
Right. Yeah, you're right, Franz. And we see he's like overly concerned when it comes to the traffic violations, but clearly has no regard for the homicide laws. Don Malarczyk, let me go to you here. What did you think when you saw this creepy video? Franz is right. It is creepy. He does look like a creep sitting there. What did you think of him and his comments?
It's creepy. It's disturbing. And, you know, what's interesting to me is he doesn't really appear nervous. He doesn't appear like, you know, he's worried about any consequences. And what's odd is he's really trying to kind of get in the head of the police officer. He's saying, you know, hey, I'm honest. Doesn't that count for something? And he's trying to talk to him about job, how he does his job, why he does his job. And he's portraying himself really as kind of a victim. Hey, I didn't know, you know, I was just driving. Aren't you going to give me a break? But what stands out to me clearly is this is a guy who is not nervous. He's calm, he's collected, he's in control, he's not emotional. He's asking really intelligent questions, trying to get out of clearly violating the law. And I think that's a little bit of insight into what unfortunately happens 2 months later after this traffic stop.
Yeah, great points, Don. I love what you said about how he may be trying to get in the head of the officer. You know, like at one point he asked the officer, he said, say I lied to you about the seatbelt. You know, and like, what does he get? What's the purpose of this? Franz, what do you think?
So I think the uncomfortable part about this is, on the one hand, it's a $10 seatbelt violation. On the other hand, he seems to almost enjoy what's happening a little bit too much. And, you know, look, my thought from day one has always been, Julie, what happens if this guy gets away with it? Like, where does Kohberger go in life if he gets away with the multiple homicides? You know, does he get a PhD and go and teach? Does he become a serial killer? What happens? But I think my takeaway from this is I would not be shocked, Julie, if there weren't other crimes that we don't know about yet.
You know, that's a great point, Franz. I've seen some things swirling around on TikTok, on X. You know, you don't know what to believe anymore. I mean, you don't know if you're looking at facts or propaganda anymore. You have to, confirm every single thing you see in cyberspace. But yeah, that's really interesting, and I'm sure we're going to hear about anything else, if he did anything else. Don, when I'm looking at him, we know he's a murderer. At this point in time, he hadn't murdered those Idaho students. It was just 3 months before August, and, we know the awful killings happened in November. Looking at him, I have this Ted Bundy, he gives me Ted Bundy vibes every time I look at him, just the way he speaks, he's so articulate, we know he's smart. Curious what you see when you look at him, having had so many, you've debated a lot of high-profile cases with some really bad people. Does he remind you of any other serial killers, Bundy, or anybody else you can think of?
Yeah, I think the Ted Bundy analogy is spot on. Ted Bundy was a guy, like Franz said, who seemed to be enjoying the limelight, enjoying the focus. And what strikes me is this guy is a complete psychopath. And what we see in psychopaths and homicidal psychopaths is they're not nervous, right? They're not agitated. They're not emotional. They're in complete control. Inside him, I'm sure it is a burning, crazy, insane, loud, nonsensical voice in his head, but what he shows is this really calm demeanor where he portrays himself as being in control. He's not afraid of authority. He's challenging authority. He's trying to figure out a way out of this mess. He's cold. He's calculating. And these are the guys that are terrifying, right? These are the guys that scare the heck out of me when I go to sit down and I talk to them at the jail. And they don't want to address the real issue. They want to talk about other things. They don't want to talk about themselves. They want to talk about you. They want to talk about the police. They do everything and anything to avoid any real accountability, and they deflect to everyone else and everything else. And there's no real emotion. You can see it in his eyes. He's focused, and that is really terrifying.
Yeah, I really appreciate what you said there, Don. About the control, you're right. He likes being in control. It's very evident. He's emotionless. It's like, I think he's soulless, too. When we think about whether we'll ever hear anything else from him, I've been getting this question a lot. Perhaps Franz and Don, perhaps you both have too, when people know what you do for a living and know you give legal analysis on cases like this one. Franz, do you think he will talk at some point to someone from prison?
I think he wants to talk. I think he wants to tell his story, whatever that is, but it will be very much a controlled burn, Julie, and by that I mean it's going to have to be on his terms. So I do think at some point there will be that very disturbing, creepy interview that we watch where he's being interviewed about the crimes. I just can't help but feel that we're going to hear more from it.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right. We shall see. We'll leave it here for now. Franz Borghardt, Don Malarczyk, stand by kindly, please. We'll hit our first break when we come back. Coming up on Opening Statements, we've got my one-on-one interview with Diddy's defense attorney, Marc Agnifilo. Does he hope to return to music?
I don't know that he's thought that far ahead. The phrase he uses with me, and I can share it because he said that I could, is he says he feels he has more to give.
Plus, closing arguments expected today in the shot 5 times assault trial. What does the jury think of defendant Billy Delgado?
The Court TV podcast will return.
My body was in so much pain. I didn't even know where pain was radiating from. I kept passing out. I just did not want to die.
Now, for what's trending in true crime, impactful testimony in the shot 5 times assault trial. A Texas jury will soon decide the fate of Billy Delgado, with closing arguments set to begin this morning. He's charged with aggravated assault in connection to this right here. We've got video of this, him on camera shooting his now ex-wife. Tuesday, the key players in the case, victim Erica Torres and defendant Billy Delgado, both took the stand. The defendant tried to make sense of the shooting. On cross, while the victim recalled wishing her life would end while she was in the hospital.
I felt so much pain that I wanted to die at one point. I did ask to stop. I did not want to live anymore at one point. The pain was absolutely horrible. It was excruciating, and as much meds as they would give me, nothing would work. I wanted to die at one point. I thought it was better.
Mr. Delgado, you ambushed Erica that day, right?
No, sir. I was...
No, it's a yes or no question. You ambushed Erica that day?
No.
Did you let her know that you were going to shoot her when she arrived? Yes or no?
I didn't even know I was going to shoot her when she arrived.
Okay. Yet, you didn't warn her, right? So you surprised her by shooting her 10 times that day?
No, sir.
It's on video, Mr. Delgado.
I did shoot her 10 times that day, but I didn't shoot her planning that I was going to shoot her.
So did Billy Delgado say anything that will sway the jury one way or another? Let's bring back in our legal eagles, criminal defense attorneys Don Malarsic and Franz Borghardt. Don, let me begin with you, please. What did you think about Mr. Delgado's testimony?
Julie, you said in your opening statement, he's done. He's not only done, Julie, he's well done. He's that piece of hamburger on the grill from last week when you open it up and you see it sitting there. He's cooked. I mean, he had an offer of 40 years, and I understand 40 years is a long time, and he rejected that offer. But he is going to spend the rest of his life in prison. He did absolutely nothing to advance his case. He provided the motive for the shooting, or an additional motive for the shooting. I don't think the jury believes for a second that this was justified. I don't believe the jury believes for a second that, he blacked out and doesn't remember it. This is a really good example of why you don't put your client on the stand. I mean, it's just painful to watch.
Yes, you're so right, Don. Franz, your thoughts on this character?
Well, Don's a smart guy. I don't know that the attorney put him on the stand as much as he may have wanted to tell his story. You've heard me say it before, Julie. Sometimes you try to paint the Sistine Chapel with crayons and you get what you get. And I think it sums it up when he says, well, I mean, I did shoot at her. I did shoot her. I mean, he did not help himself. And I get it, right? In order for this manslaughter lesser charge theory to work, he has to get up there and he has to tell a narrative that somehow justifies that he was either blacked out or he in some ways was provoked into doing this, and he failed miserably. So I guess he gets a C for effort, and we'll look forward to the jury convicting him.
C for effort, I know. Yeah, it's bad painting the Sistine Chapel with crayons. I like that a lot, Franz. And for anybody at home that it hasn't heard this, it's an expression what Don used, putting your client up there. It's, Don knows, we know. It is his choice to get up there. I'm sure his lawyer advised against it. And what do you do, in that situation? You have a guy like that, Don, and I'm sure you've encountered it before, where you tell them, it's just not going to go well for you, and they're intent on it. Do you pray? Do you go to the chapel and pray? What do you do?
This is one of the decisions that is absolutely in the exclusive right of the accused. He has an absolute right to testify or not to testify. And what I try to do is, if a client is adamant that he's going to take the stand or wants to take the stand, I try to, long before the trial starts, explain why this is going to be a problem. And then what I do always is I run him through a cross-examination. You know, Franz and I, as defense attorneys, have been cross-examining people for our entire career. And prosecutors don't really get the chance to cross-examine too many people. So when I cross-examine my client, it is going to be the most difficult cross-examination they are ever going to face in their life. And by the time we're done, hopefully I've convinced them that there really isn't a benefit to getting up on the stand. The juice just ain't worth the squeeze.
So true. You're right. And I bet it's a Larry Sutter cross-examination, isn't it?
Yes.
Don Malarczyk, Larry Sutter, God rest his soul, one of the best trial attorneys around. And Don and I learned so much from him. Let's switch to another case. I want to ask you both about this one going on in Colorado where we're on a verdict watch for. This is day 2 of jury deliberations, the Poison Shake murder trial. The defendant's a disgraced dentist, James Craig, accused of murdering his wife by poisoning her protein shakes. And before the jury started on Tuesday, they heard the closing arguments. Let's take a listen.
We spent 10 days killing Angela Craig. And he could have stopped on day 1, or day 2, or day 10. He kept going. Kept going right until the end. Angela Craig was innocent. James Craig is guilty.
They proved beyond a reasonable doubt that this guy was a pretty crappy husband. He cheated on his wife constantly. They did. They proved beyond a reasonable doubt that he was not faithful. That they proved. But this idea that somehow this was some sort of motive was nothing new.
All right, the defendant was seen, there he is, looks a lot different than in his promo ads for his dental business. He was wiping away tears during his attorney's closing arguments. He's looking at first-degree murder as the top count, looking at potentially life in prison if he's convicted. So the judge restricted us from showing all the evidence. We were just allowed to show opens and closes. For anybody wondering, that is why. He got emotional there. Will the emotions impact the jury at all? Franz Borghardt, look at you shaking your head. What do you say, Franz?
So I'm shaking my head in part because I've been there before, where I'm the defense attorney standing up conceding that my client is, to use her words, a crappy guy. So I've been there, and I understand what it's like to be there. I will say this. One, is divorce really that bad? I mean, like, and on top of that, his problem is his subsequent criminal behavior after he was arrested, Julie. It just, you know, the conspiracy to kill some other people and I think he's done. I think the theme to today's show is stick a fork. He's done.
Stick a fork at him, he's done. We got a lot of well-done defendants, don't we? Don Malarczyk, on his dental office devices, investigators found these searches. How many grams of pure arsenic will kill a human? Is arsenic detectable in the autopsy? Don, your thoughts on this guy?
Well, Julie, you know, none of us are heroes when our search history is revealed. I mean, none of us, right? But, you know, this is really compelling, strong evidence that this was premeditated murder. I mean, there's no real plausible, innocent excuse for that kind of search history. You know, as Franz said, you take a look at his behavior after this crime and you put together the ample evidence of motive. And not only does the search history suggest he was trying to figure out how he killed her, but that's how she died, right? Through this poisoning. And there's evidence that he was having this poison delivered to him. So, yeah, I think the theme of the day is let's shut off the barbecue. This case is over. The jury is probably figuring out what they're going to do for dinner this weekend, I would guess. And I'm suspecting we're going to get a verdict sometime today.
Yeah, I think you're right, Don. Franz, last one to you here, please. So the evidence came in that he wanted one of his daughters, a daughter that he shares with his wife, Angela, the victim here, to get a burner laptop and make a fake account using AI and try to create this fake video of Angela asking for these things he would order. We know he had multiple orders for arsenic and for cyanide, and make it look like she wanted him to bring the poison into the house for some reason. What do you think about him involving his child?
Well, obstruction of justice generally is a giant neon light to guilty conscience. And look, if you're willing to poison your wife, the mother of your children, I think you're probably okay trying to criminalize your children. So I'm not shocked. It's disappointing, but I mean, I'm not really shocked about that.
A great analysis. You guys are the best. You have cases to win. We have to let you get off to court. Don Mularsik, Franz Borghardt, thank you so much for your time this morning. We'll see you soon. Still to come here on Opening Statements, my one-on-one interview with Diddy's defense attorney, Marc Agnifilo. Have your expectations with the federal government changed at all with Maureen Comey being let go from her position?
No, I thought Maureen Comey was an outstanding lawyer and is an outstanding lawyer, and I think will go on to have a terrific career regardless of where she is. I think it's a loss to the U.S. Attorney's Office, and it's unfortunate, in my view, what happened to her personally. I got to know her and all the members of the government trial team pretty well during the trial, and I have a great deal of respect for all of them, including Ms. Comey.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
Welcome back. We're shining our spotlight this morning on the case against Sean Diddy Combs and his latest push to get out of jail. He's awaiting sentencing on prostitution-related convictions. His lawyers just filed a brand new motion for bond. So what's it mean? I sat down with his lead attorney, Marc Agnifilo, to find out. With me now, Sean Combs' attorney, Marc Agnifilo. Marc, great to be with you. Thank you for being on the program today. And might I just say, I got to see you deliver the closing arguments in the case, and you were an outstanding advocate for Mr. Combs.
Oh, thank you very much, and thanks so much for having me.
You're very welcome. So let's get into this bail package that you have proposed. I read your motion, and you talk about the exceptional facts of this case and how the way the Mann Act is being applied is kind of like one of a kind. Would you walk us through what you mean by that, please?
Sure. So the Mann Act was passed in 1910, and it's changed a few times through the years, but really what it's geared at, what it's focused on, is prosecuting people who make money from the business of prostitution. And that's not the allegation against Mr. Combs. The allegation of Mr. Combs, what the jury found, essentially was that he was a user of services provided by sex workers, essentially a John, for lack of a better word. And the Mann Act just historically hasn't been applied to Johns. It's a financial statute. It's really been applied at people who look to make money from prostitution. And so since that's not how it's being applied here, we made the argument that we have to, under the case law and the statutes in this area, that this is an exceptional reason and that Mr. Combs should be considered for release on bail because of it.
Marc, I read in your motion, you say that Mr. Combs may very well be the only John sitting in a jail right now for his crimes. What makes you say that?
So we've done a nationwide survey of Mann Act cases, and we're not all the way finished, but we've looked at probably close to 100 cases. And we don't see any other case where a John, the user of prostitution services, is being prosecuted under the Mann Act. There are instances where the user of prostitution services has some kind of connection with the arranger, the organizer, the people who make the money from the prostitution services. But in terms of just being a straight user of services provided by a sex worker, we think he might be the only person in the country.
I certainly see what you're saying and can appreciate the legal argument you put forth in your motion for bail for Mr. Combs, Marc. And even if the judge agrees, let's say the judge agrees that this is an exceptional application of the Mann Act and your client may be the only one who's jailed right now. You've cited every other case you can find. It's an ROR type bond situation. What about the other component that we know the judge is very concerned about, and that is your client's propensity for violence? Even you yourself acknowledged that in the closing arguments of the case with what happened to Cassie on the video that the world saw, and in the instances with Jane. How can you reconcile your position now in this motion for bail, that he should be free and is not a danger to the public, when we know these instances happened in the past?
So I think the key thing with what you said is that it happened in the past. I mean, the only instance that we have in recent memory was one, and the trial evidence showed this, where Jane essentially, started a fight with Mr. Combs, smashed his head against the counter, threw glasses at him. Jealousy was always a feature of their relationship, and Jane was jealous of his relationship with another woman. And so that was about 14 months ago that happened. But other than that, everything dates back, a number of years, 2018 and before. And as we made, the point we made in the bail application as well is, Mr. Combs is seeking counseling, was seeking counseling for domestic violence before he was arrested. He was attending a program here in New York, and we really wish that he could have stayed in that program, but the federal government arrested him, and then he was in jail, and he couldn't continue with this very outstanding program, which I believe he'll come back to if he's released. And that's really, I started my career in the Manhattan DA's office, and I would see, all manner of domestic violence, and it's a very difficult crime for everyone involved. It's difficult, obviously, for the victim, who has to live in fear from one of the people in her lives that she's the closest to, or he's the closest to. But what I saw in the DA's office is that these were not resulting in lengthy prison sentences. These were resulting in appropriate, treatment programs, self-awareness, therapy, things like that. And I think this is what Mr. Combs needs, rather than an extended time in prison.
Mark, my understanding is that Jane wrote him a letter to get into the batterers program before he was arrested for the instant case. Is that correct?
So they were in the process of writing a letter. So what happened with Mr. Combs, and this is because of his notoriety, and I think this is really unfortunate, is that I tried very hard to get him into a batterers program in April, April and May, before he got arrested. And I think because of his notoriety, a lot of these programs didn't want to take him. And so I think what was happening around the time of the incident that was testified to at the trial is that Jane was, in fact, helping him write a letter to get into one of these programs. And at the end of the day, he didn't get into the program that I think the letter was directed to, but we got him to another program, and he did start, therapy and counseling in that program, and did that for several weeks before he was arrested. So that's what your question is. The answer is yes, that is true.
And thank you for that, Mark. Is he availing himself of any programs now in the jail?
So the MDC doesn't have the programming that some other jails do, because it's not a final holding facility. It's really for people who are in a pretrial posture. So it's by its nature somewhat transient. So other prisons where people go to serve their sentences have much better programming, and so the programming at the MDC is not really that well established. That being said, we've cobbled together therapists and people who go in and and speak with Mr. Combs, and he is availing himself of that.
When we come back after this break, we're going to turn our attention to sentencing. Currently, the date is set for October 3rd. Remember, Diddy was acquitted of the crime of racketeering conspiracy, acquitted of the sex trafficking offenses, convicted of transportation to commit prostitution. That carries a maximum allowable penalty of up to 10 years in prison. When we come back, I ask his attorney what he's hoping for in terms of a sentence, and Diddy's plans after it's all said and done. We'll be right back.
This is the Court TV Podcast.
Welcome back to Opening Statements. I'm Julie Grant. So how much prison time should Sean Combs be sentenced to? And what are his plans when the time comes for him to be released eventually? My conversation with his lead defense attorney, Marc Agnifilo, continues. Marc, I want to talk to you about sentencing, please. Have your expectations with the federal government changed at all with Maureen Comey being let go from her position?
No, I thought Maureen Comey was an outstanding lawyer and is an outstanding lawyer, and I think will go on to have a terrific career regardless of where she is. I think it's a loss to the U.S. Attorney's Office, and it's unfortunate, in my view, what happened to her personally. I got to know her and all the members of the government trial team pretty well during the trial, and I have a great deal of respect for all of them, including Ms. Comey. But no, that's an outstanding office. The Southern District of New York has a deep bench, as they say. They're very good lawyers in the office and on this trial team. So I don't think the presentation of evidence or arguments will suffer, even though Maureen left.
Marc, it seems like your team and the government are just miles apart on what kind of a sentence would be appropriate for Mr. Combs. What is your greatest hope, your most ideal hope for sentence for him?
So my hope, obviously, is that he gets out as soon as possible. We filed a bail application this morning, and my hope, obviously, is that the judge sees the wisdom in that and agrees with us. The government will oppose it, and the government will oppose it for reasons that they believe are sound. Now, in terms of sentencing, we believe that a sentence along the lines of time served is more than sufficient. If you look at what Johns are sentenced to, even if they're prosecuted in the first case in this country, no one's doing close to the time that Mr. Combs has done in jail. So I think we have to treat like cases alike, and I think he should be released in short order.
Marc, what are his hopes for his life? Because at some point this will all be said and done. We don't know what exactly the sentence will be that the court imposes, but after that, does he hope to return to music?
I don't know that he's thought that far ahead. The phrase he uses with me, and I can share it because he said that I could, is he says he feels he has more to give. And I think that's the focus. I think that he has spent a lot of time reflecting. He's a religious man. He's a man who has 7 children. He takes care of them, all of them. He takes care, one of the long-term relationships with whom he had 4 kids, has passed away, but the rest he takes good care of the women he's in a relationship with. He's really a very caring, dedicated person. And so I think he wants to emphasize that part of his life, come out of jail, spend some great time with his children, who he misses very much. They get to see their dad. And I think he's going to be happy in the short term, having the simpler pleasures in life, but I expect he's a genius in my view. And he has unparalleled talent and ambition and vision. And I would say vision is probably the most pronounced of all those things. And I expect big things out of him. But I think we need to let him have a little transition, have some downtime. I just spoke to him an hour ago. I said, I'm not going to rest until you feel the hot August sun on your neck. And have the simple things in life, and you can take it from there. And I think he sees the wisdom in that.
Marc, he really couldn't have a better advocate. I mean that sincerely, advocate to advocate. I was incredibly impressed with you and what I got to see and how passionately you've worked for him and his defense. One last question before I know we have to let you go. As you know, no cameras are allowed in federal court, and that's something I hope that changes one day. Tell me, if the public were able to have watched, do you think it would have perhaps changed any public opinions? In other words, is there anything you think the public might have missed in not being able to actually see the trial?
That's a great question, and it's such an interesting issue. I mean, there's something about federal court that's wonderfully traditional. You know, they didn't have cameras in 1789 when the Southern District was created, and it hasn't changed. And there's so much about trying cases in federal court where things haven't changed, and there's so much about that that's wonderful. That all being said, I do think the public would have come to view Mr. Combs very differently than the way he was depicted in the tabloids and in these lawsuits, which lack merit. And I wish that they could have seen the evidence firsthand, the way the jury did. You know, and one thing I want to throw out, I mean, not too much, but there's been a little second guessing I've seen of the jury verdict by some people in some publications. And this was an immensely dedicated jury. They were on time every day. They paid close attention. They all took notes. You can tell when a jury is really functioning at 100%, and this jury was. And I wish that everyone could have seen what the jury saw. I think that would have been very good for Mr. Combs and very appropriate for the world to have seen it with their own eyes.
Most definitely. And the respect you showed us in this interview that you're exuding for the other side. Everyone's just doing their job. The government did what they felt was best under the circumstances, following the law as they saw, and you all did your job advocating for your client. Marc Agnifilo, thank you so much for the conversation. I hope we can talk again sometime.
Thank you. I hope so too.
All right, so now let's take a look at the defense's bond proposal package. So Diddy's legal team is proposing that their client be released on a $50 million bond and that he be allowed to live in his home in Miami. I should say it's a mansion, it's really a mansion, as he awaits his sentencing in October. Now, the bond would be co-signed by 3 financially responsible people. His travel would be limited. It'd be limited to Florida and to New York, and his passport would be surrendered. His lawyers say if necessary, they would even add in home detention, so electronic monitoring, private security, mental health treatments, also substance abuse treatment, and electronic surveillance to make sure that he stays where he's supposed to stay. And we're going to be following this developing story for you. We'll report anything we learn in the meantime. October 3rd is currently the date set for Sean Combs' sentencing. And my friends, that is all for this episode of Opening Statements. If you liked it, you can watch the episode again. You can share it with your friends. We put them up there on your favorite website every day. Just go to courttv.com and click on that Shows tab. That's all for this episode of Opening Statements, my friends. I'm your host, Julie Grant, and it's been great being with you. On this show, I am calling out any pants on fire moments in our big trials and true crime stories, and I want you to come along with me. Opening Statements is live every weekday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern on Court TV. Thank you for downloading this episode. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. You can watch past shows anytime you like on courttv.com.